Hello! So let's make some bread. The recipe I'm going to make today is a modified version, or at least is inspired by a recipe from this book, which I highly recommend. Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast got me into sourdough bread making, really helped. And it's a great book and a great cookbook. So I highly recommend. I'm not going to cover everything that's in this book. There's a lot of details, so I highly recommend going and buying this book. I will follow the basic process though with some additions, some tweaks. So I kind of do my version of Ken Forkish's method, but this book is still super helpful, super valuable, and I highly recommend you go and buy it and read it cover to cover. So today we're going to be making a recipe from here. We're going to make 2 loaves. I've got my sourdough starter really peaking right now-ish. It's been about 9 hours since I fed it this morning. The first thing we're going to do is called the Autolyse. And that's where we basically mix just flour and water and let them sit. Start gluten development and that. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll get you down around over here so you get a better view of the action, and let's make bread. Okay, so here we are down on the cutting board, and I've got my digital scale. You can see I sort of unzeroed it there. So what I'm gonna do, I've got my 12-quart Cambro tub. I'm sitting on top of it now, and first we're gonna do is measure out the flour, and I'm gonna show you exactly how I do that. I've got 3 different flours, and I like to start with the flour that has the smallest measurement. That way I can correct more easily, as you might see here. So the first thing we're gonna do is some whole wheat flour. Just need 26 grams, so hopefully you can see the number there. I like to shake the bag as opposed to sort of pour it, because you can see I don't need much here. 26, it's 25, little shakes, 26, perfect. Okay. Then I'm gonna use some dark rye flour. I'm gonna zero my scale. I only need 50 grams of this. I only need 50 grams of this. So I'm gonna do it sort of right on top here, kind of slowly. Again, shaking the bag seems to work better than trying to pour it. Sort of shake it back and forth. I'm doing it right on top of the other one and trying to make a little pile so that if I go over, which hopefully I don't do here, 50. Okay, perfect. Okay, so those are just a little bit of flour. Now for the bulk of the flour, we're gonna use a bread flour here, and I need 804 grams of this. There's a little bit more of this going on. All right, 804. It takes a second, but here we go. Oh, okay, I went over a little bit, which is good actually, because if you go over, just take a little scoop or something like that and scoop some out. Oh, and then went a little bit past how much I needed, so I just tap it back until I get to 804. Oh, and I went to 5. Great. I was worried about that. Okay. Oh. Chasing the 804 here. Sometimes that can be a little bit tougher if your scale is touchy. Okay, so we got that. And then next thing we're gonna do is measure out the water, but I'm gonna clean up this flour real quick first. For the water, I need 684 grams, so pretty similar process. 684. And I like to look at the first 2 numbers, so I'm thinking 50, 55, 59, like that, until we get to about 68. Pretty close. $6.84, perfect. By the way, this is heavily filtered water. This is an Epic filter. Spring water would also work, but I don't use tap water. I don't use distilled water. Those things can have chlorine and chloramines and fluoride in them that can inhibit the growth of the yeast and the bacteria that we need. So now what I'm going to do is get this to pretty warm. So we're going to get this to like 90, 95 degrees. We're going to do that in the microwave, but I'm not going to make you watch. Okay, we're out of the microwave and I'm using my digital thermometer instant read here, and it should have right about 90 degrees. And I measure right from the middle. I make sure to mix it around really well before I read it. But hopefully you can see that. Okay, so we've got our water nicely warmed. And then one thing we're gonna do really quickly before we, let's zoom out a little bit here. Before we add the water to the flour, this is something Ken Forkish doesn't do. I've never seen anybody else do it. One time I had a lump and I did not like it. It was not fun. So I just do a little kind of whisking of the flour together. One thing this does is mixes up the rye and the whole wheat with the bread flour. So we get it spread a little more evenly. It means I have to do a little less mixing with my hands. And also just gonna get some lumps out, right? Make sure. And I just do this until I start to see flecks of rye in the dough. Yeah, just sort of, or in the dough, in the flour. It's already dough. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. Just a little bit, right? And then I'm gonna pour the water in here. Okay, and I just washed my hands really quick, but I didn't dry them because we're gonna mix this by hand. And at this point, what I'm doing is I'm keeping my fingers kind of together. I'm using these middle two to really stir the bottom, okay? Again, I'm after dry flour. I don't want any dry flour, and I want this really well mixed. So I'm just sort of spiraling from the middle out to the edges, keeping my fingers on the bottom. And the reason we're doing this is we're starting gluten development already. By mixing this and letting it sit for a half hour or so, gluten will start to form. And we're not mixing in the salt because any salt can inhibit the absorption of the water. So it just doesn't soak it up as well. And so all right, we're getting a little bit towards the edge here. So now I'm gonna kind of go around the edge in the opposite direction. I kind of like to scoop and push, scraping anything off the sides that I can. Don't worry too much about it, but try to get the bulk of it. And you can't really overmix at this point, but you definitely can undermix. So do a good, thorough job. Just look for any dry flour, especially stuck to the bottom. All right, we're getting there. So I'm turning it over here well. Looking around. Any lumps. Okay. We're looking pretty good here. Again, I'm kind of going back to the middle, making sure there's nothing drying out on the bottom, but I'm not seeing it. Okay. Just doing some last mixing. And then we have this, right, on our hand. What I'm doing is I'm going to wet this, my other hand, my free hand, really briefly, and then basically use it as a squeegee. Get, we got most of that off of there. This little tiny bit I'm not going to worry about. But we are going to clean up the sides here just really quickly. Let me wash my hands really fast. I can edit this out. Okay, then after washing my hands, I'm just gonna use this curved bench scraper dough cutter to scrape down the edges. Again, I'm a little paranoid of lumps. I had that one at one time, and it just went all the way through the entire process to the end and all the way into the finished bread even. So, okay, just scrape those down. I'm not too worried about little tiny bits, but that's basically it. We've got a what some recipes will call a shaggy mass. And I'm gonna put the cover on and I'm gonna let this sit for a half hour, and then we'll be back. We'll add the starter and some salt and get it going. See you in a few. It's about 30 minutes later. We've got the Autolyse or shaggy mass. You can see it's kind of wet looking now on top in places. That's about good. We're gonna now add some salt. I use usually this or something similar. A nice fine sea salt. You want the sea salt. You want the minerals in there. Minerals help with the yeast formation, the bacteria growing and stuff. I don't know the exact science on it, but they minerals help. And we've got our starter, and I've got some containers and things. Let's just weigh out the salt here. I need 22 grams of salt. Hopefully I have it in this container. This one's almost out. So, of course, because I'm trying to go on video, it's gonna die on me. Come on, baby. No. What do we get there? Come on. We can do it. Yeah. All right, we got it. There's even a tiny bit left in there. Okay, so we're gonna spread that. And let's just do this. I was trying to show you everything here. I'm just gonna sprinkle this really nice and evenly. Let's do from here. And over the top. I'm not gonna mix it in real quick yet. Just, okay. Then, next we need some of the starter. And the way I like to do this is actually need some cold water. Put a little bit of cold water. You can see it's just a little bit, kind of a splash into a nice flat little plastic container or whatever. And put that on my scale and zero it. So I need like 220 grams, but it's a little bit hard to get that exactly. Also, if it's winter, I'm going to want to go a little bit more than that. It's cold-ish, but I'm not going to go too much more than that. I've also got a container here of warm water to dip my hand in when I'm mixing. And before I go and grab some, because that's how we're going to do it. We've got starter, nice and bubbly and goopy, and I'm wetting my hand in the water, and I'm just going to grab like a handful, and put it in here. We got 187, right? So I'm gonna need about 30-ish more. And then I'm just gonna grab a little tiny bit. Okay, that's way too much. So that was 60, so I'm gonna grab about half of that. And then just to sort of see, I'm gonna put it back in here. So yeah, 30. All right. So that was 185, 189, so we're 410. We could probably even do a tiny bit more. Let's see if we got 10 grams there, 6, 5, whatever. I feel like mine has been overproofing lately, so I'm gonna go a little under. And then let me just clean up a little bit here, move some of this around before we mix in. Okay, I'm gonna just put okay, I went ahead and washed my hands. I wanted my left hand clean so I could maneuver the tub without getting stuff everywhere. And so now what I'm gonna do, even though I did that, I'm gonna get it a little bit wet too. I like to spread out the levain like this, kind of over the salt, and kind of poke it in even a little bit at this point. That's not really a Ken Forkish thing either, but, and then as you're gonna see, this is a lot like stretching and folding. I like to go around the outside, kind of separate everything, just pull it away from the edge. I found that to be helpful. And then just gonna slap it over, gonna stretch it and fold it. We'll do more of this in a little bit. That's basically the only real kneading you do here. Okay, then I'm getting my hand good and wet because we're gonna do some pinches. And this is a Ken Forkish thing. Basic idea, and this isn't the only time in the process you're gonna manhandle the dough like this. It's not, once there's significant gluten development, we wouldn't want to do that and like break it all up. At least from the way I understand it. But okay, and we're gonna do a few of those. And luckily, you can see the starter's a little bit darker than the regular dough. So it kind of gives me an idea of how incorporated it is. I know it's not gonna get smooth, but I just want it to be fairly well mixed in. Let's see, I do pinch, kind of do it into like a 3 or 4 pinches one direction, and then one big long, or kind of two pinches this way. I'm gonna break it into little chunks, and I think it might mix back together a bit better that way. Just mix. Okay. It's getting a little bit harder, too. It's getting a little tighter, which is what happens. Okay. You notice I just keep wetting my hand. I just feel, as soon as it feels like the dough is sticking too much, because notice what I end up getting is this like film over my hand of like a doughy kind of film. And as long as I keep it just barely wet, I just sort of dip my fingertips in and let that go over my hand. That's kind of what, so it's like, see how my hand just doesn't stick because of that. But if I put this hand in there, I feel like it would stick. So at least that's the hand strategy there. How to not. Okay, then at the end, notice what I do is I get a little bit and I go between both hands. I kind of rub some of that protective stuff onto the other hand. And then I do a little sort of a coil fold. One direction, the other direction. Again, we'll do more of this later too, so hopefully you can see that well. But partly I just like to make a nice neat ball at the end here, like, okay. And then I'm gonna slap the cover on that and it'll sit for about a half an hour, and we'll start doing the official stretch and folds. That's the mixing part. All right, everything's now all mixed and we start bulk fermentation. And I start washing my hands. Okay, it's now 30 minutes later. It's like 6:45 p.m. I'm going to do the first stretch and fold. You can kind of see the dough there. Okay, so this will be pretty quick anyways. My hands are clean. I just washed them. Got the dough here, and it's very similar to before. Get my hand wet, my right hand, and I like to go around the outside and just get everything off the edge. And I'm not sort of, otherwise it can sort of stick a little bit and kind of pull against the edge, and it just seems like it's not good. So then I just grab about half of it, pull it up, switch it back on itself. Give a quarter turn to the tub and do the same thing. Try to take about half of it up as far as it'll go. If I feel it starting to rip, or just you can feel it's starting to sag down, then I'll flip it over. Another quarter turn. Same things, and get a little sloppy there, and then finally one more. Okay. And then here's where I like to just sort of tidy things up. I think you can just stop right there, but one thing that Ken Forkish does that I agree with is he rests the dough sort of seam side down. Keeps any gas in there, and just, I don't know, if nothing else, it's just neater. So there we go. So that's about it. So that's the first one. I'll do another one in a half hour, another one a half hour after that, and then one final one just before I go to bed, like about 2 hours after that. And I probably won't show all of them because it's kind of boring. It's the same sort of thing over and over. The dough will get a bit tighter though each time, and a little more elastic. You can sort of see the gluten development. We'll see. Maybe I'll film it, maybe I won't, but there you go. That's the first stretch and fold, and just 3 more. Put the lid on, and try to remember to turn the camera off this time. Okay, it's the next morning. It's almost 8 o'clock in the morning. So now 13, 14 hours after our initial mix. You can see our dough has probably just about tripled in size. It's looking pretty good. Just sat out right here pretty much all night. And it wasn't a super cold night either, so looking pretty good. I've got my dough cutter, gonna need that, also called a bench scraper. And I've got a couple Banneton baskets with flour, and the flour is still sort of dried out in there, I just baked the other day, but one thing I like to do is I take the fabric thing, and I kind of just rub off what I don't want is some giant chunks. All right, so I'm gonna kind of rub that off, and then I'm just gonna tap this out in the sink. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing with this other one, and then we're gonna flour them a little bit. Here, I'll show you like this. These are pretty well seasoned. I don't need to do too much to them. If you have new baskets, you need more flour, basically. Okay, so let's just flour these guys up. Got my bread flour here on the side. And that one's almost ready to go. So let's just do this guy first. Just dump some flour in there. And then I like to kind of do this I hold it at almost a 90-degree angle. It's almost straight up and down, but not quite. And then I just sort of whoosh the flour in. And I just kind of keep doing this till... Thanks, that was Alexa interrupting us. I just keep doing this until the flour mostly sticks. There isn't a giant pile of it in there. Just really until about like that. I'm gonna take it extra a little bit and just kind of sprinkle it here. Okay. This one here. This one looks really pretty good, just right off the bat. So I'm just giving it a little extra. A little for the side here. You can definitely put too little flour, but in a way you kind of can't put too much. So if you're worried about it sticking, you can just load up the flour and you can deal with it later. There you go. So about like that. And then I just sort of stack these up really gently right off the side like that. I also have a couple I use these recyclable, reusable grocery bags. I'm gonna set those over here because we'll need those after we divide it. Okay, and then now flour is your friend for this part. As you flour out about a couple square feet, which needs to be about like that. It's almost the size of the tub, but a little bigger maybe. All right, and then more flour. We're gonna do and around the edges. And then, now what we're doing here, there's a lot of gases built up and stuff. It's kind of similar to when you punch down a dough. We're gonna degas the dough, so don't worry too much about protecting the You want to protect the gluten, don't rip it all apart, but don't worry about degassing it or not. All right, so I'm gonna take got a little bit of flour in my hands here. I'm just gonna punch down, not really punch down here, but punch into the side of it. And I'm not, big bubbles and stuff. I'm just gonna pop those, get a little more flour, throw it back in there. Notice I've got the tub sort of right about the middle of that flour spot. And then I'm just gonna ease it out little by little, let it come out onto the, and then see nothing really left. On the sink. I'm rubbing my hands together to get any little bits off of there. I don't want any lumps of flour. All right, and more flour in my hands here. And then I like to kind of just you want to look out for big bubbles because they're going to throw off the size of this. You want to get this into a regular shape where I've got a kind of a symmetrical shape, right? That's what I mean by regular. But if there's a big air bubble on this side, it's going to look like more dough than it really is. So I'm going to be a little bit careful. Now, it doesn't really matter too much if one is super, like a little bigger than the other one. I just don't want them to be like incredibly different. All right, so then I've got them divided into two basic shapes. So maybe a little bit bigger. It's kind of hard to tell at this point, but now got to do the shaping, right? There's gas in here and stuff, and so I'm going to be kind of forceful with this. I'm going to pull it, slap it back down on itself, and I'm looking for any gaps where there's kind of like a wet dough. Slap it down, slap it down, pull and slap down, kind of like stretching and folding, honestly. You pull back, and you can see it's starting to tighten up now. I'm just still pulling back, slapping down. And then once I get about there, I'm gonna kind of roll it over on its side and use the table. Use the fact that there's a little bit of stickiness there's a lot of stickiness in the dough. Kind of pull itself into a little ball here. Just put that guy right about there. Okay, just for a minute. A lot of flour. Keep my hands well floured here. Right, pull, slap back down. I'm looking for like a long spot like this. Pull it, slap up, slap back down. A little more flour. This guy, slap it back down. Slap it back down. You can see, right? That's the difference. Okay. All right. Starting to get kind of sticky here, so. Right. I'm just looking for the kind of the smaller spot. I'm just tucking it up, pulling it that direction a little bit. Flouring up as I need it. All right. That's probably pretty good. Put some flour on top of each one of these now. A decent amount. I'm not too worried about over flouring this. Okay, I'm gonna get the tub. You can see that, okay? Just sort of roll it over, peel it off the bottom. And this is very different from me and Ken Forkish. He puts it in seam side down and allows the seam to be the crack. I want to score this bread, so that's why I do this, okay? You don't have to, you could put it in the other way, but this is how I do it. All right. Then a little bit of flour on each one of these two. Just kind of rub it in like that. And we cover it with their little canvas covers. too worried about these. These don't seem to affect too much. But now the important thing is get it in a plastic bag. There's an area here. Clean. I just put the basket into the bag. I sort of fold these guys here, this little plastic, and then tie it off. So far this has worked really well. And I reuse these bags over and over and over and over and over and over. Alright. I don't know, I'm gonna need to bake earlier than usual today. So I'm gonna let these sit out for about a half hour. I'm gonna set a timer. I'm gonna clean up and then we'll bake them this afternoon. Normally I'd bake around 4 or 5 o'clock, but I have to go out, so I'm gonna alter the temperature of the proofing. Basically, right? Not cold proof quite as long. Not proof quite as long. I'm trying to shorten the proof time. Plus, I'm trying to get out of the house a little early today. Okay, it's a few hours before baking, and I just wanted to show you how I preheat the oven with both of the Dutch ovens in there, and so I just get them in there a few hours early, make sure I don't forget, basically. And yeah, I just got them in there on a rack. I have these are 2 pizza stones. Because of my oven, it shoots up heat on the edges, so I've got it so that it basically tries to even out the heat and it doesn't burn the bottoms or the side of the bottom, really. So, and then, yeah, in a few more hours, we'll bake the bread. Okay, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's bake. I've got a clear space here. Wanted to show you kind of everything. In the fridge now, pulling out 2 loaves. They've been in there for most of the day. And then I'm just gonna take off the plastic bag. These are usually a little bit wet inside from condensation, so kind of give them a shake like this. And I'll put them aside, let them dry out. Okay, then let's, some things that you can't see that I have off screen here. I'll just show you real quick. Got my bread flour. I'm gonna need a little bit of that. Got a little basting brush, and I've got, for scoring, I've got the lame, or basically a razor blade on a stick, right? Trying to show you that. For scoring. Okay. And then right now the oven is going. It's been going for about an hour, and the Dutch ovens are still in there. I leave them in there for a little bit longer here. All right, let's go ahead and pop these guys open, check them out, do a quick proof test. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, you can usually put flour on your finger, but I'll just find a spot that has some flour and poke it. And what we want is just about that. It should come back, but not all the way. It should sort of spring back, but leave a dent. We should still be able to tell where we poked it. So that says it's ready, plus timing and that. And okay, and then one thing to note here is I've got 2 different sizes. One's a little smaller, one's a little bigger. I have two different Dutch ovens too. So I'll put the smaller one in the smaller one and the bigger one in the bigger one. I do have a little bit of a bubble here, which makes me think something overproofed. So, yeah, we'll see. But anyway, the first thing I do is take a little bit of flour and put that on each. I don't want this to stick to the counter, but I also don't want a lot of flour on here because any extra flour on the bottom here is just gonna burn in the bottom of the Dutch oven. So you can see I'm sort of almost wiping it off, but just making a nice floured surface. And if it's not 100%, it's probably fine. The idea here is just, you don't want to flip it out and have it stick to the counter. That's not going to go very well for you. And a little burnt flour isn't the end of the world, so I would err on the side of too much flour, but okay. And then for scoring, I need a lot of room, so I like to put mine sort of in slightly different spots. And then all I do is I tip it forward. Boom. And just give it a little shake like that if it sticks. And then set the baskets aside. And then I, again, do a bit of a rub here. There's flour from the basket. And I want to score this with a nice, I want it to be a nice white or, floured surface. So I put flour all over it and kind of like the bottom too. I don't want a lot of extra flour. I want a nice coating of flour, but not a lot extra because that's just going to end up coming off when we are done. I don't really like that. Kind of messes up the final design, if you will. All right. And again, this is kind of an optional step if you don't want to score it, or even if you do. What this does is by making the bread white now, we get some contrast. Wherever we score it is going to be darker, basically. So, okay. And you see all this flour around. In the past, I found it hard I would grab the bread and I'd put it in the pan or in the Dutch oven, and there'd be a lot of extra flour. So now I use this little basting brush to just get the majority of the flour just kind of away from the bread. It doesn't really have to be anywhere except not on the bread. So I just kind of get that around here. I like the smell of baking bread. Don't really like the smell of burning flour. So, okay, and this is the point where what I'll usually do is I'm pretty close. I'm just about to score. So I'm going to get out the Dutch oven to get them ready. Okay, here we go. What I like to do is take them out, I turn it, I give it a 180-degree turn, and I put it on the opposite side even. Put this together, put the lids down. Those are hot, hot, hot. Okay. And then now I'll score this first guy here. I'm gonna do more of a traditional kind of score here. Just make sure that's nice and good. And then let's do a little leaf pattern over here. Okay, let's do the same thing over here. And of course my dogs want in, always right when I'm in the middle of something like this. They can wait just a second. And this little slashes here kind of makes like a little wheat-like pattern. We'll see, depends how good I do it. It's a little bit hard, but okay. And then now, notice I've got a smaller one and a larger one. Smaller one, pick it up, kind of give it a little bit of a turn there. And when I put it in, I put the middle down first and then let the edges fall, okay? It's kind of important. I put it in like this, okay? Otherwise it messes the shape up a bit, okay? And then we just put the lids on, put them back in the oven. They're gonna go in for 30 minutes. And then we'll take the lids off and we'll see how they do. What they look like anyways. See what we're doing. Okay. There we go. Set a timer. 30 minutes. See you then. Okay, 30 minutes later, the house is starting to smell good. I'm just gonna do a quick taking the tops off, the lids off of these guys. I'm trying to do this pretty quick. What I'm gonna do is take the lid off and spin it. I'm hoping you can see what's going on well. We'll see. First one, lid off. Lid up top. Really good spin, it's looking good. Second one, nice ear forming. Okay, just spin this, get them a little in the middle. And now they're back in for about 20 to 25 minutes. We'll do about 23, we'll see. Okay, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. 23 minutes have basically passed. I'm gonna take the bread out of the oven. It's about, probably 36 hours after we started. Now we get to see what happened. Okay, now I'm just gonna do these one at a time. So you see I've got a cooling rack out here. What I like to do is kind of tip it onto one hand gently, set the thing down, and come back. Okay, that one looks pretty good. Not too bad. And let's go to the next one. Okay, this one's looking a little better, a little more of an ear on this one. Okay. You definitely want good oven mitts for this. I've got a link in the description for pretty much all the stuff that I'm using here. These oven mitts are really good. They're silicone lined or something that you can actually hold on to the pot for a little while, which is pretty important in that step. Okay, and then one final thing. You can see, looking pretty good. This one maybe a little better. This one didn't pop up quite as much, but I like to get another basting brush, and what I'm doing is I'm looking for any little bits of, oh, look at that rip there. So that's kind of good in a way. It's so energetic. It just kept going from this one. So yeah, who knows? Not a lot is needed here, but I like to use a little basting brush to clean up the design. Basically, if there's flour, usually when I'm tipping it, so a little bit of flour will get on it, and I'll just kind of clean it up like this. And you can do this now. You can do it later. You can brush off any extra flour or anything like that, but there we go. I'm not gonna cut these open. I'm sure you're wondering what the crumb looks like, and definitely I am too. I wait 24 hours before we do that. I do wanna show you the ear on this one though, just in case a lot of people want the ear for some reason. I don't really care about it one way or the other. I don't think it improves the flavor or anything like that. I think it's a sign that things are going well, but it's not the only sign. So anyways, we'll see what the crumb looks like tomorrow evening, basically, and then I'll wrap up this video. But well, there we go. We've got bread. It worked, basically. And you can kind of see our little wheat pattern here. Didn't come out great because I didn't get as much flour or white, in between, in between the scores, but I'll take it. It looks good, it smells good. It's doing a little crackly thing it does, and we'll see what the crumb looks like tomorrow. Okay, it's now about 23 and a half, almost 24 hours later, the very next day, and the bread has been sitting pretty much like this since last night. Once it was totally cool, I covered it with a nice clean new tea towel, just to keep dust and bugs or whatever off of it. But you can see, looks about the same. All right, let's go ahead and cut into one of these and check the crumb. I really like this one. I want to give this one away probably. So let's check the other one, the one that doesn't look quite as nice. Hopefully the crumb is just about the same in both of them. But I love, one of the reasons I make bread is I love to give it away. I probably give away 2 loaves for every one I keep or eat, or probably even more, really. So I want to keep that one really nice. And we're just going to cut it right down the middle here. By the way, this knife, I'll put a link in the description. I sing the praises of this knife pretty much as often and as loudly as I can. It's a very inexpensive knife. It's a Cook's Illustrated America's Test Kitchen recommendation, and not very expensive. But the key is the tooth pattern, and I'm not sure how well you can pick that up on video, but it's got this kind of concave, kind of wave-like pattern to it, and it does so much better than my other bread knife, which has got more jagged tooth. So anyways, this is the tooth pattern you want for cutting bread, seriously. Highly recommend it. All right, here we go. That way, almost there. Just that last little bit. Okay, there we go. And ta-da-da! Whoa, yeah, see? Still looks a bit overproofed here. See that big cavity right there? That says overproofing. It's not bad, it's decent. It's got some good bubbles, but kind of inconsistent. This one looks better. It's got some nice bubbles. It's certainly not bad. I'm not complaining. I don't really like huge bubbles like this because it just makes it harder to use as bread. And I don't want it really dense either. So not the greatest. I'm gonna basically continue to work on this and reduce the proofing time. I think I might be doing the bulk fermentation just a little bit long, or it gets a little bit warm sometimes. So I'm going to work on that, but I will certainly be eating this bread very soon. And there we go. I hope you have a lot of success making bread. And yeah, let me know in the comments and stuff below how it goes for you. If you have any questions, anything like that. Thanks for watching.